Why you should not learn English. I once stared at English textbooks with a growing sense of despair, feeling utterly overwhelmed by grammar rules and endless vocabulary lists. The traditional academic approach felt incredibly stifling, prompting me to silently wonder, why should I even bother learning English if it feels this impossible? My motivation plummeted, constantly doubting my own linguistic capabilities. Years were spent memorizing verb conjugations and irregular plurals, yet I couldn't string together a simple sentence when faced with a native speaker. This disconnect between theory and practice was disheartening. The weight of correctness paralyzed me, making every potential conversation a source of immense anxiety and fear of judgment. This constant struggle led me to a critical juncture, pondering the very efficacy of my learning methods. I kept asking myself, is this truly the way of learning English, or am I just wasting precious time? The frustration mounted with each failed attempt to engage in spontaneous dialogue, pushing me closer to giving up entirely. My inner voice began to whisper a rebellious thought, why you should not learn English in this traditional, soul-crushing way. It wasn't about abandoning the language, but rejecting the rigid, ineffective methods that had held me captive for so long. A radical shift in perspective was desperately needed for progress. Then, a simple yet profound idea emerged from an unlikely source: start talking at home. It sounded almost too easy, too informal, considering my academic background. Could my living room truly become a vibrant language laboratory, a safe space for uninhibited expression and genuine linguistic growth? Initially, the thought of speaking English to myself within my own four walls felt profoundly awkward and even foolish. There was no one to correct me, no grade to achieve. How could this seemingly trivial act lead to real fluency? My skepticism was high, yet my desperation for change was higher. Despite my reservations, I decided to embrace this unconventional, talking tip strategy. My first attempts were hesitant, almost silent whispers. I began by describing mundane objects around my room, articulating their colors and functions aloud, feeling silly yet strangely liberated by the act of speaking. I spoke to my reflection in the mirror, narrating my daily routine as if broadcasting a personal documentary. I am brushing my teeth. Now I am making coffee. These simple acts became my first stepping stones, building a basic foundation of spoken English without the pressure of an audience. My bewildered pet became my most patient listener, enduring my hesitant monologues about the weather or my plans for the day. This seemingly trivial interaction provided a zero-pressure environment for me to experiment with new words and sentence structures, slowly gaining vocal confidence. These early, talking tips at home were crucial. They allowed me to connect the sounds of English with my own voice, something textbook exercises had never achieved. It was about making the language tangible, personal, and less intimidating, transforming abstract knowledge into active expression. Simultaneously, I realized the immense power of immersion. Why you must listen became a new mantra. I started consuming English content voraciously, not just as entertainment, but as active learning material, tuning my ear to the rhythms and intonations of native speakers. Podcasts became my constant companions during commutes and chores. I chose topics I genuinely enjoyed, making the listening process engaging rather than a tedious task. This passive absorption gradually transitioned into active analytical listening, helping me discern nuances. Watching English movies and TV shows, first with subtitles, then without, became a daily ritual. I focused not just on understanding the plot, but on how characters expressed emotions and reacted in different situations, absorbing natural conversational patterns and colloquialisms. The next step was to listen and practice actively. I began shadowing, repeating phrases and sentences immediately after hearing them, attempting to mimic the speaker's intonation, pace, and pronunciation. This helped me articulate sounds I previously struggled with. This active practice, combining listening with immediate repetition, significantly improved my pronunciation and rhythm. It was like tuning a musical instrument. The more I practiced, the more harmonious my spoken English became, sounding less robotic and more natural. The way of learning English was clearly not confined to classrooms anymore. It was an organic, iterative process of input and output, listening and speaking. My home had indeed transformed into a dynamic learning hub, fostering growth through practical application. Building up the courage to how to take first step for talking outside my home laboratory was daunting. My heart pounded whenever an opportunity arose to speak English, even if it was just ordering coffee or asking for directions. I started with tiny, deliberate steps. Instead of avoiding eye contact, I'd make simple greetings to international visitors or colleagues. Good morning, or how are you? These small interactions, though brief, felt like monumental achievements at the time. My internal monologue, once dominated by fear, slowly shifted towards self-encouragement. I reminded myself that mistakes were not failures, but stepping stones. Every stumble was a learning opportunity, a chance to refine my linguistic muscle memory. I sought out online language exchange partners, starting with text chats, then graduating to voice calls. These low-pressure interactions provided a safe bridge from solo practice to real-time conversation, slowly desensitizing me to the anxiety of live speaking. The journey of how make confidence in speaking was gradual, built brick by brick. Each successful, albeit imperfect, conversation added a new layer of self-assurance. I learned to embrace my accent and occasional grammatical errors as part of my unique learning journey. I focused on conveying my message clearly, rather than striving for unattainable perfection. The joy of being understood, even with a few stutters, far outweighed the fear of making a mistake. This shift in mindset was pivotal for my progression. Celebrating small victories became a crucial part of my routine. Successfully asking for directions, understanding a joke, or expressing a complex idea, each achievement, no matter how minor, was acknowledged and appreciated, reinforcing positive behavior. My daily struggle was a persistent companion throughout this process. There were days filled with frustration, when words seemed to vanish from my memory and my tongue felt impossibly clumsy, leading to moments of intense self-doubt. I vividly recall days when I'd forget the simplest vocabulary, feeling utterly foolish despite hours of practice. These setbacks were demoralizing, testing my resolve and making me question if I truly possessed the aptitude to achieve fluency in English. There were moments of awkward silence during conversations, where my mind went blank, searching desperately for the right phrase. The pressure to respond quickly often led to more blunders, making me want to retreat back into the comfortable silence of my native language. Overcoming these struggles required immense self-compassion and perseverance. I learned to acknowledge the frustration without letting it derail me completely. A short break, a reminder of my progress, and a fresh start were often all it took to recenter myself. The feeling of wanting to give up was strong at times, especially after a particularly challenging conversation or a day filled with linguistic blunders. But the vision of truly communicating in English kept me going, pushing through discomfort. I developed a habit of reflecting on my daily interactions, identifying areas for improvement without harsh self-criticism. This analytical approach turned potential failures into valuable learning experiences, refining my strategies for future conversations. The realization dawned that my day's struggle was not a sign of failure, but an inevitable part of the learning process. Everyone faces hurdles. The key is how you choose to navigate them, turning obstacles into stepping stones for growth. As weeks turned into months, a noticeable shift occurred. My hesitation diminished, replaced by a growing eagerness to communicate. The fear of mistakes began to recede, no longer holding me captive in the silent confines of my mind. I found myself initiating conversations more frequently, actively seeking opportunities to practice. The language that once felt like a foreign, impenetrable code slowly transformed into a familiar, wieldable tool, responsive to my thoughts. The joy of finally being able to express a complex idea, to tell a story, or to genuinely connect with someone in English was incredibly rewarding. It wasn't just about speaking, it was about bridging cultural gaps and forging new connections. English ceased to be just a subject to be studied, it became a living, breathing part of my daily life. From understanding song lyrics to following international news, the world expanded, offering new perspectives and exciting possibilities. My journey had undeniably proven that the way of learning English was less about rigid rules and more about active engagement. It was a dynamic process of experimentation, listening, speaking, and continuous adaptation, mirroring how children learn. The once dreaded question, why you should not learn English, was replaced by an emphatic, why you absolutely must learn English. But with the crucial caveat, learn it through active immersion and consistent, courageous speaking practice. My confidence soared not because I became perfect, but because I embraced imperfection as a vital part of the learning process. Every mispronounced word or grammatical error became a tiny lesson, shaping my linguistic intuition. The transformation was profound. From a hesitant learner hiding behind textbooks, I emerged as a confident communicator, capable of navigating real-world conversations with ease and genuine enjoyment, eager for more interaction. This journey taught me that true fluency doesn't come from memorizing lists, but from making the language your own. It's about finding your voice, even if it's initially wobbly, and letting it grow stronger with every single word uttered. The biggest lesson learned was that the first step, however small, of simply opening your mouth and producing sounds, is the most critical. It breaks the barrier between passive knowledge and active application, igniting the learning process. Listening critically and actively, not just passively hearing, proved indispensable. It refined my ear, taught me natural speech patterns, and provided a rich reservoir of vocabulary and phrases to draw upon during my own speaking endeavors. The importance of consistent, even brief, daily practice cannot be overstated. Like a muscle, language ability strengthens with regular exercise. Even 15 minutes of focused speaking or listening made a significant difference over time. My home, once a place of academic struggle, truly became a sanctuary for linguistic growth. It was where I stumbled, experimented, and eventually found my voice, all in a safe, judgment-free environment, fostering deep progress. I discovered that the greatest barrier to speaking English was often internal, the fear of making mistakes or sounding foolish. Overcoming this mental block was far more challenging than mastering any grammar rule or vocabulary list. The joy of connecting with native speakers and understanding diverse accents became an incredible motivator. It transformed a solitary learning endeavor into a vibrant, shared human experience, enriching my life profoundly. Every small conversation, every successfully understood phrase, built my confidence incrementally. These tiny triumphs accumulated, creating a solid foundation upon which I could build more complex and nuanced interactions with others. The unconventional path I took, focusing on immediate speaking and active listening, proved to be the most effective way of learning English for me. It bypassed the academic paralysis and directly tackled the core skill of communication. If you're struggling, remember, start talking at home. Embrace awkwardness, celebrate small wins, and listen intently. Your fluency journey begins with that first, courageous word, even if only spoken to yourself, and then extends outwards. This shift in approach, away from rote memorization and towards active, consistent practice, transformed my entire relationship with the English language. It moved from being a daunting challenge to a fulfilling and empowering journey. Ultimately, the message is clear: don't let traditional methods deter you. The true secret to learning English lies in speaking it, consistently and confidently, starting right where you are, in your own home, with your own voice. My story is a testament to the fact that fluency is not an elusive gift, but a cultivated skill. It's built through intentional practice, persistent effort, and a fearless embrace of imperfection on your personal journey. So, if you're wondering why you should not learn English in the traditional sense, perhaps it's time to rethink. Instead, focus on practical application, on authentic communication, and on building your speaking muscles from day one. This journey taught me that confidence isn't found in perfect grammar, but in the courage to speak, to make mistakes, and to learn from every single interaction. It's a continuous process of growth and self-discovery. My English journey, filled with its daily day's struggle and numerous small victories, ultimately proved that the most effective way of learning English is through consistent, brave, and joyful communication.